I know. Feels real good to be back. So who wants to play Are You Ready to Be a Psychologist? Well, you can't. Because I don't know the first thing about running a game show, but I do have this quirky quiz you can take to find out if you would be ready. So if you think you're ready, we can just dive right in. Time for question number 1. David walks into a bar where he finds all his closest friends drinking. When he sits down, he suddenly remembers he has homework for his class that he is currently failing. Should he A. tell his friends he has to leave so he can go home and take care of his homework? B. Ask his best friend for a chance to talk so he can share his deep-seated insecurity about being a failure? Or C. Buy the next round so that he can return to being distracted from his real issues while also never giving his friends a chance to see him as anything other than a well-put-together good time? If you answered C, great job, you're on the right track. David is sitting at home alone watching his favorite TV show when suddenly the thought of his ex comes to the forefront of his mind. Should he A. call her and tell her that he hasn't felt the same since things ended and that he's so sorry for not being able to be open and honest and vulnerable the way she was with him, and not a day has gone by where he hasn't thought of talking to her and telling her this? B. Use the breakup as a learning experience so that while he may never be able to get her back, if he ever finds himself in a relationship again, he won't cause the same pain he already has. Or C. Take back-to-back shots of rum until he can no longer see straight, let alone allow himself to feel any amount of real pain while telling himself that this is just how he deals with stuff. I know this is a tricky one, so don't be upset if you didn't get C here. Question 3. David is lying in bed when suddenly he realizes that all of his friends and the people around him are far younger than him, because his peers simply surpassed him ages ago, and while he can tell others that it's only because of his past traumas and that he's just doing things at his own pace, deep down he knows that it's all due to his own failings and his own poor choices that he's in the situation he's in currently. Should he A. take concrete steps to improve his situation by taking care of his classes, sleep schedule, and applying for better jobs? B. Find a professional that can help him confront his fears so he can overcome the things in his own mind that are holding him back, and maybe even get him medication if that's what he needs? Or C. Raid his liquor cabinet to polish off the almost empty whiskey bottles that he only keeps there so people think he's distinguished, while inside knowing that it only makes him look like a pretentious douchebag, and watch videos until 3 in the morning until he can finally find the relief of 4 hours of restless sleep? Yeah, so I think you're getting the gist of things here. We just hit 3, so it's no longer funny, the shtick. I'm over it. Humans are very interesting creatures. As far as we know, we're the only species in the entire universe to discover the laws of gravity, to invent cell phones, to create empires, to write books, and to make, vacuums are cool. But for all the great things that have come from the human brain, we are also still the only species we know of that is smart enough to recognize what we're doing wrong, while also being too stupid to stop fucking doing it. Yeah. Buckle up, kids. I hope you're ready because we're going to get a little real today. Fear was vitally important to the survival of our ancestors since, at the end of the day, the only goal of our DNA is to make more of itself. It's a lot easier to do that when you're not fucking dead. That's why when you see a shadow in your window at night, your brain tells you it's a murderer and not 3 fluffy dogs in a trench coat trying to break in so they can cuddle you to sleep. Because while whatever you're seeing is most likely not a murderer, it's better for survival for you to believe it is so you can be prepared to defend yourself. Evolution has wired our brains for fear of the unknown, of death, of pain. However, our brains have also evolved mechanisms to overcome these fears, because an ancient human living constantly in fear and never leaving the cave would have just as hard a time surviving as a human that tried to pet every bear they saw. The simplest and most intuitive way of overcoming fear is through exposure. If you're afraid of vacuums and someone vacuums the carpet in front of you every day, at first you would be understandably quite scared. But as the days go on and you face the vacuum more and more, and you come to understand that the vacuum is not going to cause you harm, your brain will begin to relax and you will no longer be afraid of vacuums. Unless you're my fucking dog for some reason. It's not going to hurt you. But fear is not inherently a bad thing. There are things you should absolutely be afraid of. If the server at the Mexican restaurant tells you the plate is hot, it's understandable that you would be afraid to touch it, because without a doubt that plate is fucking hot. This is called avoidance, and you do it all the time whether you realize it or not. When you get those intrusive thoughts to swerve into oncoming traffic while you're driving, please tell me that's not just me, you don't do it in part because your brain wants you to avoid the physical pain of getting into a car accident. I think everyone, whether they realize it or not, understands this concept. It should feel intuitive. Pain hurts, let's try to avoid the things that hurt. But what's non-intuitive is how we deal with emotional pain, because in my 25 years of being alive, I've realized that when it comes to the quirky little things your brain likes to do in its time off, nobody knows shit. However, although no one knows anything about how our brains really work, everyone has their opinion of how it works and what's going to make you happy. So, hey, here's mine, I guess. I've spent a lot of my life living in fear. A fear of failure kept me from being able to pursue something that made me feel happy. A fear of being criticized. A fear that I was a fraud. But most of all, a fear of being seen as anything other than great. For whatever reason, I couldn't allow anyone to see me in a way that showed them that I didn't have everything put together. To me, having a dying YouTube channel because I never uploaded any content was a better option than having a dying YouTube channel because the initial popularity of my videos was simply a fluke, and I'm not actually capable of creating good content. I stopped doing something I loved, something that I'd wanted to do for a long time, because I led myself to believe that if every video I made wasn't an outright algorithm buster, that somehow I'd failed, that I wasn't worthy of the success or attention I'd received, that I was an imposter. But I never expressed any of this to anyone. Instead, I told people it was because I had lost interest or that I was unable to come up with anything to write about, which if anyone saw all of the half-written scripts on my computer, they would know that's all bullshit. I manipulated my own reality until it fit the way I wanted to feel about myself, because telling the truth, facing the truth, was hard, it was painful, and so I avoided it. I've lost many people that I've loved, from best friends to relationships to thinking I was truly in love. I let fear ruin them all. People who were willing to give me every part of themselves in a way that I was never able to, due to the fear of being seen as a failure, as a mess, as a fucking human. People who only wanted to help me, to work with me. I was unable to give them the same level of decency that they had given me. And this is where the issue is. When you have people in your life that you're that close to in an honest way, most of the time they'll be able to tell when you're manipulating the truth. They may not know why, they may not even realize that they realize it, but they will feel it and they will begin to feel alienated. Because no one wants to be vulnerable with someone who refuses to be vulnerable back. And this is what I was doing constantly. This is why nothing lasted for me, because I pushed people away. My fear of pushing people away by being fully real and fully vulnerable is what pushed them away. A bit ironic, isn't it? But in all seriousness, I've come to realize that I was taking these people for granted. And that's what breaks my heart the most, because having someone to be completely honest, completely open, and completely vulnerable with is one of the most beautiful things I can imagine. And these were people I could have had that with. People that wanted it with me, and I was incapable of giving it to them because of my own fucking ego. Because I couldn't let go of an image of myself that I had created in my own head, one that no one could ever live up to, and one that no one ever expected me to live up to. And all I ever truly needed to do was talk. Allow the people that desperately wanted to help me. Because at the end of the day, no matter how strong of an image you create, your true self is your true self. Eventually the facade will crack and it will break, and you will have to face the pain. And I can tell you, as someone who's been hiding from my pain for my entire life, that pain will never go away until you face it. It is always there, under the surface, and it will never do anything for you aside from hold you back. We will be okay. It'll be hard and it'll be terrifying, but it will get better, and it'll get worse, and then it'll get better again, but we'll be okay. None of us are perfect. None of us will ever be perfect, but all of us will always be human. There will always be more we can do to become better, and maybe it's not the time for you right now. Maybe this isn't what you needed to hear, and that's fine. There are things that should be avoided, like syphilis, political extremism, and as someone living in the desert, fucking scorpions. And there are things that shouldn't be avoided. Love, connection, and communication rank highly among them. But at the end of the day, I'm not an expert. I'm just some dumbass sitting in front of a computer talking into a microphone. So, you probably honestly shouldn't listen to me. Just, live your life, be happy, be healthy, and thanks for watching.